Welcome to the old-fashioned three. They've been around basketball from the Big Dipper to the Greek Freak, from Russell's Celtics to Curry's Warriors, from Peach Baskets to Paolo Banchero. Here are Whitey Gleason, Phantom, and Jerry Reynolds.
Yes, that was that cat, all right.
Yeah, glad you're here. Not necessarily glad you're here, but things could be worse. So anyway,
right. Thanks
maybe
a lot.
maybe you can help me. I just told Jerry something that he's having kind of a hard time dealing with. You hadn't heard about this, huh?
This was new. I mean, can you repeat it?
Yeah,
Just
are you gonna be all right? Are you sure you can handle it?
I think I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was a couple of weeks ago. Andre Iguodala, and I think he was on one of the various podcasts that he hosts and does, and he said that if Rasheed Wallace played today, he would be better than Giannis. And I was wondering if you'd heard that, and you reacted strongly.
I mean, Andre Iguodala is a fine basketball player, marvelous career, and proven winner, and probably very good at what he has done. My God, where's he coming? What in the hell's wrong with him?
He could be wrong about something, sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, he's wrong about that.
I guess the point is, and I'm guilty of kind of taking it out of context. I didn't hear the whole conversation, but I guess the point is that Rasheed, the way we talked last week about Brad Lowhouse, the original stretch 4 and 5,
Sure, yeah.
I guess he thinks the game is so much perimeter oriented now that a guy like Rasheed would be more effective because he'd draw other centers. I don't know. And it wasn't that long ago that Rasheed played, A, and B, he was pretty good, right?
He was excellent, very good. He was probably the second or third best player, fourth best player on the Detroit Pistons. I mean, but he wasn't the. I don't know that you'd ever say he's the very best.
Yeah, he was one of those guys. He was one of the first guys, I think, when you talk about stretch fours that I watched play, and I said, that guy's unguardable because he can score off the block and he can also hit the three at 6'10", 6'11". But to then put him up in a place, in a niche with one of the 15 best players probably when he's done that we've ever seen. I think that sometimes us old guys, even the young old guys, have to go, sometimes the young guys are better, and that's just the way it is.
I don't know. Maybe he just says that to get people to pay attention that he said anything at all. Rasheed, by the way, was going to be a coach with the Lakers. I remember I was talking to Jerry about that when that was just announced, and we were both kind of surprised. And it turns out that's not going to happen, Jerry. I don't know if you saw that, but Rasheed is not going to be part of the Laker coaching
I did see that. I knew that he had coached with University of Memphis. Penny Hardaway was a head coach there and had him. I don't know if he even finished the year, but of course had Larry Brown and legion of others.
Yeah,
how it is. But anyway, so maybe he just had enough of coaching. But Rasheed Wallace said, no disrespect, a fine player. Probably as far as complaining about calls to referees was kind of the Cousins before Cousins.
He's ahead of his time.
Every single call, had to make an issue of some type, but all-star level player.
Yeah.
But the last time I checked, and correct me if I'm wrong, Giannis Antetokounmpo, his style of play is kind of a one of one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can find a 6'11" guy in history, and we know history that can plays like he does, and now he's even getting so he can make the three a little bit. So are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So Iguodala, sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
You and J.J. Redick might and Draymond Green need to get together and maybe have a podcast.
The podcasting players, they tend to make statements.
Yeah, I think Rasheed, for the most part, properly rated, right? I mean, I think we have a clear idea how good he was, and unfortunately for him and those Blazers, they almost beat the Lakers and stopped that three-peat before it got started, but they weren't quite good enough. That was a really good team, won a championship with Detroit, but I think we have a pretty clear idea of how good he was.
Well, I think what's intriguing to me when you talk about him coaching the Lakers, I mean, I can see Anthony Davis as Rasheed Wallace just a little bit better. So I can see maybe he works with Anthony Davis and develops that part of his game. I can see the comparison between those two there. Anthony Davis. But that's what Anthony Davis, I think, thinks he is now, and sometimes he is the guy from outside. I don't think he's as good as Rasheed was yet, but I can see him trying to, play his game, model his game on Rasheed, and be pretty successful.
He should be better than Rasheed, but I think it's a fair point that maybe he's not. He definitely has potential, I think. Here the final thing I'd say on that is
This does not amuse you, does it?
No, it doesn't. Rasheed Wallace will not go into the Hall of Fame. Now, let me explain this to you. Giannis Antetokounmpo will be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and will probably win another MVP or two along the way. Don't know if he'll win another championship because that's hard to do. But good grief, don't. I'm just.
Sometimes it's just don't
I've
bring
ruined
that to
his
my
day.
door. Don't
Yeah.
bring that
I've
to my
ruined your-
door.
I'm sorry, I've ruined your day.
Yeah. There goes the show. Because
Yeah,
Jerry's out.
Yeah, that's like saying, Bill Laimbeer is better than Bill Russell or something, or
I remember one time we were talking on the radio, and we were talking, of course, about the Kings, and it was when Spencer Hawes was a rookie, and he had blocked a shot in a game and then, caught it. And I remember we were talking about that, and I said, "Oh, that was like Bill Russell." And you said, "Whoa, whoa. No, we're not even going to make that suggestion on any level that Spencer Hawes is similar to Bill Russell,
In
other
any
than
way.
maybe they play
Yes.
center."
Well,
So
like I said,
understand.
I work with Bill Russell, and I really have a lot of respect for him. And I think he was 56 or 7 years old when I worked with him, and I guarantee he's better than Spencer Hawes then. He was quicker and more athletic then.
Yeah. No
Better
disrespect to
basketball
Spencer
IQ.
Hawes.
Better IQ.
Yeah. And you referenced earlier the podcast that J.J. Redick was on, and he recently said something that Jerry West just went nuts about. And I guess maybe it was on ESPN. I'm not sure where this was. J.J. Redick was talking to somebody about ranking point guards, and he said, Bob Cousy used to play against plumbers and firemen.
Yeah.
Because I think Chris Russo or somebody had Cousy ahead of Chris Paul. J.J. Redick, Bob Cousy played against plumbers and firemen. And Jerry West wasn't having any of that. He was very upset by that. But it is true that back in those days, guys had to get second jobs.
Sure. Yeah, just like baseball players, too, back
Yeah.
in the 30s and 40s and 50s. I mean, up to that period of time. So, it obviously, to me, West's best, one of the things he said that really struck me was you can't compare eras. And Bill Russell always told me that too. It's like, people always wanting to compare him to Jabbar or something. He said, you can only be great in your era. You can only compete against people in front of you. You can't compete against people in the future. And that will go for the current great players, whether it's LeBron. You can say, 30 years from now, somebody say, how good was LeBron? I don't know. But I thought, I thought JJ was really out of line there. In other words, the game was different, sure. Certainly J.J. Redick would have made tons of money being basically a reserve shooter, a real good shooter off the bench, making 10 times more or 20 times more than Cousy ever did. But Cousy in his time was the best player, the best point guard in the league for 5 or 6, 7 years.
Houdini of the hardwood, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I always remember talking to Cousy one time early in my Kings career and just about different things. He said, I said, I did a lot of stuff. He said, the stuff I did now, every kid in junior high can do.
Right.
But that's not his fault. He was still first to do it.
Yeah.
Somebody had to do it first.
I mean, it's like, no, he did it in games, made a living doing it when nobody else could do it.
Something you and Bob Cousy have in common. Am I right, Mr. Basketball? You both coached the Kings-Royals franchise.
Yeah.
He was a player coach, I believe.
He was a player coach, yes. He, of course, coached for the Kansas City Kings, played for the Royals and coached.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a player coach for the Kings in Kansas City, but he was just
the Royals.
coach.
Yeah.
But and with the Cincinnati Royals, of course, when the team, moved to Sacramento or to Kansas City, they already had the baseball Royals, so they couldn't be the Royals. They had to be the Kings.
Who was tougher to play against, Vanna, back in your day, the Plumbers or the Firemen?
Well, firemen, because they had the strength of going up and down the poles.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask Gary, talking about Bob Cousy, I had heard a story that when he was coaching the Royals, when the Lakers were putting together their 33-game winning streak, and at one game during that streak, they had to play the Royals, and the Royals were beating them, and he put himself in the game, and then the Lakers came back and won. Now, I don't know if it sounds apocryphal, but it sounds like a Cousy thing to do, too.
Well, he put himself in some games, I know, at that time, and really wasn't very good. The ship had sailed. But actually, as far as the 33-game winning streak, no, that was in '72, I think it was, and the Kings. I mean, the franchise was already in Kansas City.
Okay. Well, so maybe I have the destination wrong, but they said that Cousy was coaching the team at that time.
Well, he was coaching. Yeah, he was coaching. I think at that time, but I don't
Yeah, maybe
know
the Kings are not
if
the
he
West.
put himself.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that I thought his only coach playing days was when they were in Cincinnati, and I know that
I think that's
they'd already moved.
correct.
I mean,
Okay.
they had moved by the time the Lakers were great.
We're doing the
Yeah.
Well, when you talk about point guards now, you talk about Cousy and comparing eras. But I think we've talked about this before. When you're ranking point guards now, there's two different kinds of point guards. It's not even when you get Bob Cousy. You can't
Positionless
really,
basketball,
yeah,
one of Jerry's favorite terms.
But I don't like that term in a sense. I mean, I think everybody uses that, and then before the last draft, everybody would use that term, and then I'd hear somebody else talk about, well, you got to have roster balance. Well, if you have to have roster balance, but nobody has a position, why do you need to balance your roster? So I think we have a lot of different things, but it's just the hybrid point guards now, and you can't compare a Steph Curry to a John Stockton or a Bob Cousy because they really don't play the same position.
Well, certainly they play a different type of game. I always go back to the Cousy era. That era of basketball is so different, no question. But basketball players weren't allowed to actually carry the ball to where they wanted to
You
go.
and I agree on this.
Yes. I mean,
yes. You hold it at your hip for about a
yeah,
second or two.
they actually had to keep their hand on top of the basketball, or it'd be a violation.
That's
Dribble.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Now as great as Ja Morant is, you want to put him back in 1950, and he can't carry it. His game is going to struggle a little bit. That's all I'm saying. He'd find a way. But I mean, in today's game, everybody, the interrupted dribble, which is supposedly a violation, is never called unless a guy actually puts it under his arm and takes 3 steps.
And even then, if it's LeBron, it's 50-50.
And then then if it's your move,
Yeah,
type
yeah.
thing.
If that's your move.
I remember one time LeBron did that, and someone asked him about it, and he said, "That's a crab dribble." It's like, no,
Yeah,
that's not.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think you touched on one of the keys to this last week, Jerry. We were talking about point guards and Westbrook, and you pointed out that now, if you're playing point guard in the NBA, you got to be able to make a three. Right? And there was a time not that long ago, guys like Steve Blake, Luke Ridnour, they were kind of pure point guards, and they could knock down a shot here or there, but they would get a team into the offense. And now those skills are not as important as they used to be because you have to be able to do so much offensively.
Yeah, the 3-point shots changed everything. I mean, the pass first point guard is, as we were just saying. I mean, you still, I think you can play that way, but it's I always call it kind of for one of a better lead guard.
Yeah,
the guy
yeah.
that really is going to control the offense. In other words, that's why I always say LeBron James is the lead guard. He always has been. You can call him small forward. You can call him whatever you want to. But whatever, to me, the guy's dribbling the ball up the floor, entering the offense and creating the offense. That's kind of your lead guard or point guard, or used to be your point guard. I mean, he may guard a different position.
Yeah.
So did Magic. Magic didn't guard point guards. He guarded the off guards because they were too quick for him. That's why they got Byron Scott.
Do you know if it's true that Jerry West initially wasn't crazy about getting Magic because he thought he's too big
was a
to play the
Moncrief guy?
position?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true. I mean, it could be. I mean, it's hard to believe. I mean, Moncrief was terrific.
Yeah,
I
great player.
mean, certainly a many-time All-Star and a lead player in his own right, but not Magic.
Right, right.
and I mean, it would be surprising because to me, Magic was just so great. That it's one of those guys that be hard not to say, well, yeah, he'll be great.
Yeah.
He's a can't-miss guy.
The LeBrons, the Duncans, the Oscar Robertsons, those guys where it didn't take an expert to with the analytics to say, let's see here, it pencils out, he'll be good.
Yeah.
So
What
how-
was his effective field goal percentage, Phantom?
How many of those guys would the Kings have passed on? Robertson and those guys. Would we have passed on them in the draft?
Yeah, well, I think, of course, in those days, I mean, the Royals had draft rights
Yeah,
too.
territorials.
Robertson. Territorial.
Yeah, I know.
So they couldn't miss
So
on
we
it.
would have been covered. All right.
And I think maybe got Jerry Lucas the same way. I can't recall, but I mean, so two of the all-time greats they had to get.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the thing I love about Russell. The Russell story with Red Auerbach, and he traded a Barnum and Bailey night or something at the so he could
Louis
trade him to
Hawks.
St. Louis to get Bill Russell
To get the
Because they weren't
rights
first-
to
they
pick,
weren't
and
the first
I
pick.
think something else, and I always say that people forget who the number one pick that year went to the Syracuse Nationals. not quite a Hall of Famer, Cy Hugo Green.
Cy Hugo Green, yeah.
And then the Bill Russell was taken second.
So do you think
It's like one of those things. It's like, no, he wasn't even the first pick. It's kind of
So
like,
is the Syracuse press all over him for not taking Bill Russell?
I don't see. That's the one thing that nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody cared.
Yeah.
And then Russell wasn't available that year, his rookie year, till middle of the year, or almost middle, because he played in the Olympics.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
So
That's why Tommy Heinsohn was the Rookie of the Year.
and that's why
The year
Tommy
that Bill
Heinsohn
Russell
was Rookie of the Year.
yeah.
Exactly
Wow.
right.
Yeah, that's info you're only going to get here.
Yeah, and
on,
also
the
Steve
old-fashioned
Blake
three.
mentions.
Steve Blake,
we
Luke
don't get a lot of
Rittenauer.
Steve Blake,
Yeah.
Steve Blake mentions.
We got to talk about Durant, Kevin Durant, all this trade talk. But before we do, we were just talking about Giannis. You guys have both been known to tell, a few jokes. Did you happen to see the joke Giannis told on YouTube?
No.
Okay.
Giannis is doing
Yeah.
stand-up now?
Well, he was kind of sit down and he gave the joke, and then he tried to walk it off. Here's the thing: before we
I
get to
respect it already.
he gave a version of it, and he kind of screwed it up, and he still walked it off. So, do you want his version, or do you want what I think is the actual joke?
I want the actual. I want his.
The real-
I want the
you want
transcript.
his version?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, he says, "Did you know that people in Dubai hate the Flintstones, but in Abu Dhabi they do?" That's what he said, and he walked it off. And I thought about, wait, what?
Okay.
So the
All
joke
right,
I think
all right.
is supposed to be, did you know that people in Dubai don't like the Flintstones, but people in Abu Dhabi do? I think
Yes.
that's
Oh,
the
I
joke.
like that.
Abu
Yeah,
Dhabi
yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
Abu
I
Dhabi
like-
do. And
First of all,
that
who
was a
wrote
young,
that?
I don't know where he got it. I'd never heard it, but it's on YouTube, and he says it, and then he walks it off, even though he
So
screwed it up.
I just get out of there?
Yeah.
I got to respect that.
Well, all I can say is he better just keep working on his 3-point shot and stay away from it.
He's no Rasheed Wallace when it comes
No,
to jokes.
he's always Gene Wallace would told that better. So
There have been
really,
a lot of F-bombs in
Iguodala
there.
might have been on the right track. I mean, I was probably looking at it just from a basketball.
Yeah, just well,
perspective.
of course.
You
And
got to look at
Rasheed-
the whole
yeah,
picture.
the whole
thing.
picture.
Yeah. All right. So how you score that, Phantom?
I scored that. I give him, first of all, confidence-wise, I give him a 10.
Yeah.
Delivery, I give him an 8, but then, context and stuff, I give him only a 6.
Yeah.
Because he really didn't put it together.
Yeah.
But again, he's not
Right.
from this country, so you've got to go
Right.
ahead and
That's
say,
true.
in the Greek culture, that probably was hysterical.
Maybe so.
Yeah, so I'm
Something
gonna
lost in the
give him a 9.
translation.
I'm giving it a
Yeah.
9.
Kevin Durant. A lot of people talk about Kevin Durant going to the Celtics. I don't. There's something about this that doesn't make sense to me, Jerry. I'm not sure. I could see how if you're Boston, you'd make kind of a cursory offer and see, maybe they'll accept it. But let's just start there. If I'm Boston, I like the moves I made. My team's in a great spot. Do I really need Kevin Durant? I know he's Kevin Durant, but do I really need Kevin Durant right now?
I don't think you need him. I mean, I see the appeal. I mean, it's one of those things where, you didn't win the championship, so there's that. But, Jaylen Brown is a terrific young player, and I mean, he's going to have 6-7 years after Kevin is gone,
Right.
and be capable of being on a championship contender, I think.
So the offer, excuse me, but just so we're clear, the offer apparently, what's reported was Boston says, look, we'll give you Derek White, right, and Jaylen Brown, and a draft pick for Durant. And the Nets said no, but apparently they're still talking.
Yeah, they here again, it's all rumor, and so you don't know who's leaking what,
Right.
why. But then it's the Nets supposedly, well, if we need Marcus Smart as well as Jaylen Brown and
some draft
and
picks.
some
Yeah.
draft picks,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, now all of a sudden, two of your top 3 players you're taking out of your lineup to bring in a 34-year-old who clearly is healthy, is one of the top 5 players in the world, probably. I'd say still.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. I mean, you added Malcolm Brogdon,
Gallinari,
Gallinari.
yeah.
Your team is better than it was at the end of the year, talent-wise, and you're still young, with the exception of Gallinari. I mean, he's a kind of a 1-year spot guy.
Kind of a rental guy, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the whole thing. And I heard talk about the Kings maybe looking at Donovan Mitchell and stuff.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it seems like they've spent the last couple of months trying to build something, and it's the question of how much is a superstar worth? Kevin Durant and Donovan Mitchell, and I don't think Donovan Mitchell's on Kevin Durant's level, but you're going to blow up your team.
I don't think Donovan Mitchell's on Rasheed Wallace's level.
Well,
but please
I'm
proceed.
asking Andre Iguodala. But that's the point being, if you're the Kings, do you give him 3 guys or a couple of draft picks or something for Donovan Mitchell? I think you create a hole. You've been working on something, and now to get one of these guys, you've got to blow everything up. The Celtics have to blow everything up to get a Kevin Durant. they did pretty well last year. And like you said, they added stuff. So I don't know why you wouldn't write it out. And then you have the whole thing we've talked about before about the draft choices. I saw we're talking about Russell Westbrook trade a couple of days ago. They were talking about draft picks available in that, a 2027 and a 2029. So you're trading for sixth graders. So, I mean, it's like a situation.
Sure.
Maybe there's a line that you go, okay, maybe this is too far down the road because nobody on the team's going to be there in 2029. So, I mean, I think that if you have something that you like or that you're building, you don't blow it up to get a guy like that.
Well, the Nets need draft picks, right, Jerry? That's one thing we know they need because they got rid of all their draft
Yeah,
picks.
no, they got rid. I mean, obviously they'd like to have some picks, and I can see teams doing that more so than, or the Celtics have picks. I can see the Celtics giving them picks going forward if they want to do a deal, but not two frontline players or second, third best players because I mean, and the picks are going to give them. 26, 28,
Right.
30.
Yeah,
Right.
picks, right.
Right.
So, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Here you are.
Yeah.
You take a whole bunch of these.
Right.
And that sort of thing. But I sure wouldn't. Well, anyway, I suspect it's, we talked about it on the ride over. I just think it's one of those things where Brooklyn Nets are going to probably run it back. Bottom line is they want too much, more than they can get. And, and I don't blame teams, no reason to give them just because they say we got to have, a young star, two starters and a partridge in a pear tree. It's like at some point you say, yes. No, we'll pass.
Yeah, if I'm the Nets, and I'm not, okay? I don't
Okay,
pretend to
fine.
be.
All right.
But I look at this, and if the Celtics want to engage me, all right, we'll talk. But to the point Jerry made, if I'm the Nets, I need draft picks, but Boston's probably going to be really good if I make this trade. The picks I get are not going to be worth much. I don't necessarily want to trade Durant in division and then see him, 4 times a year and be reminded of, wow, this didn't work out. So I think this is what you're saying, Jerry. If I got Durant, I know he's a very valuable asset. Right now, he doesn't appear to be worth what I know he should be worth. So I don't have to trade him now. So why wouldn't they keep him and run it back? Sure, if someone calls, they're going to talk, and of course that's going to get blown out of proportion in the the Phantom and his media.
Somebody
buddies.
showing interest. Ooh,
But
sources say.
The only thing that makes sense to me right now is unless somebody really bowls over the Nets, that they're going to hang on to him.
I think so. I mean, the way I look at the Nets, I mean, Durant's under contract, 4 years. Okay, he's a baller. He's going to play when the time comes. Kyrie Irving's on a 1-year deal. I don't think they can make a move there.
Do when the time comes, Jerry.
But one thing,
problem.
well, I'll say this: if there's a chance of him actually having a committed year, it would be this year because it's a 1-year deal.
Exactly.
And he wants his
wants
his deal. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying in Kyrie's case, I don't think you'd ever want to count on that like you would 99% of
Right.
players. You could say
We have Phantom on a very similar deal for
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
subject.
And you can definitely
and so
sort of count on me.
But the waiver wire is always there.
We got people on the phone in the room. But I mean, that's the other thing too, Jared. When you trade for a superstar these days, one thing you have to consider is how long until he wants out.
Well, I always say with the Durant thing, it scares me. I mean, he's missed so much time lately. Mm-hmm. I think so, and he's 34. I mean, it's just, if you knew you was going to get, 280 games out of 320 or something for the next 4 years, you'd feel really pretty good about a lot of things there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's I don't think you can go into that contract thinking that at all, really.
Now, follow me down into the rabbit hole here as far as Durant and his reasoning.
All right.
We don't know, but a lot of people have different theories on as far as what's going on with him right now, and we don't know. Some people are saying, he wants out because he's tired of this Kyrie thing. Other people say he asked for the trade as a show of support for Kyrie because Durant says, they're not going to support him, then I want out. So who has any idea? Yeah. I do think the one thing we know about him, is that he does love playing basketball, which you can't say about all these guys. I think we know that about Durant. I think he's proven that.
Yeah, I think so. I really do think. Now, the thing I would say that I've read nothing to indicate that he's turned on Kyrie. In fact, everything he said has been supportive. So, I mean, it's hard sometimes for those of us in a different world to say, wait a minute, this guy, you're counting, you're loyal to him. But I think I kind of lean that direction. And so, there again, that's why if I'm the Nets, I wouldn't feel too scared about saying we're going to run it back, boys.
Yeah.
You know, you got Ben Simmons might actually play basketball again.
Okay, don't get crazy.
Possible.
This is not a science fiction
and
podcast.
Speaking of plumbers and firemen,
Yeah, and certainly if there's a guy that should fit with those two, it's Ben Simmons because he doesn't want to shoot. Those two must shoot. And then Joe Harris will be back maybe if he can get back to his level. I mean, they would be, you know, there's no reason to think they couldn't be a serious contender, more so than anything they can get in some quasi bunch of trades.
Here's the thing, Phantom. If I have Durant and I know that right now, I know what he's worth and I ain't getting it. So I keep him. Right. And then, okay, hopefully he doesn't get hurt. That'd be worst case. But even then, let's say he's going to play and it doesn't work out. I'm probably going to get more for him at the deadline than I can get now if everyone's like,
Yeah,
right?
the thing that
if I want to trade
the thing
him.
that cracks me up about the Nets is both of their superstars had great situations and left. Kyrie was with LeBron. They won. He said, I gotta get my own team.
Get my own team.
I gotta be George Harrison. I gotta go out and do my own albums. And then Kevin Durant won
I don't think
titles.
he really thought that, but I
think
understand
he
your
probably
point.
did.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant wins the 2. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go back. So they both left the best situations they could, I would think, ever be in, and now they're in a situation where there's no constants. Everything is constantly in flux, and so I just think they made some questionable decisions so far, and I don't know that we can count on their decisions going forward.
Did you hear what Durant said about Steve Kerr? It's actually very funny.
Yes, I did, and I laughed a lot.
Did you hear that, Jerry?
So, something about
he said if the 17 Warriors played the 96 Bulls. 96 Bulls?
Yeah, I think he said 96.
He says, I guarantee you, Steve Kerr was our coach. He would have us running pick and rolls to get Steve Kerr
Kerr,
into the action.
yeah.
That was good.
That was good. Yeah.
Better than Giannis, I got to say.
Yeah,
That's probably funnier than Giannis.
Yeah, far better.
So Durant and then Giannis and then Rashid over. I don't know. We'll talk about it.
Well, that's really good.
Of course, that brings up the Draymond Green comment about how the 2017 Dubs would easily beat Michael Jordan's.
He said they'd beat them by 20 and they'd beat the Jazz.
By 40.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Jazz.
Well, the only problem I have with that, I'll tell Draymond any day and any Warrior fan, Draymond wouldn't have started for the Bulls.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, who's he going to beat out?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And the Bulls, and that's the one thing they had to combat the Warriors in the three-point shooting, is those athletic guys. They had the guys between 6'6" and 6'10".
Oh, long,
with the wingspans.
Ron Harper,
and
Jordan
Rodman
Pippen
and
Rodman.
And Kukoc, too, I guess. So,
yeah,
I mean,
Kukoc.
they could have conceivably put a defense on the three-point shooting, which obviously wasn't a big deal in those days.
Well, they would have. I mean, I don't care. I mean, it's going to – some people, you can have a different opinion, but I saw those guys up close and personal. I mean, defensively, they could just close you out. It game over, you know.
How much of that was because they were allowed to do a lot more of this?
Big part of it.
But they're also mean.
And rules of the game. Like I say, if you played the rules of the – if the Warriors of 2017 played the rules of the game of the 98 Bulls, they have no chance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you played the rules of 2017, I think the Warriors got an excellent chance. I don't still – would probably take the other team. That's just my opinion. But just because of their length and athleticism, and their three-point shooting percentage was very good, by the way. I think even better than the Warriors.
There you go.
So and they didn't shoot as many of them. But
well, you know, some of those years was 96 one of those years, and you were coaching this time. The 3-point line was closer. Remember?
Well, they had
moved
it
in.
they had it for a couple of years in there. I think they got away from it by
90.
by
It's like
the
95. Yeah, I think
95,
95, 96.
I always
like that.
remember Sharunas Marciulionis. That was his range.
But
He could shoot that the
22
cheaper
or 23.
the difference,
the cheaper
the
cheaper three.
three.
He moved it out 2 more feet and he couldn't make any.
That's what we should have been. The cheaper three.
The cheaper three, yeah.
Cheap three.
Okay, well, I mean, it's in trend. We're evolving. You know,
Right.
We're evolving. We can change
Right.
it. Old-fashioned three, cheaper three. I don't know.
So, Jer, if you're an NBA GM right now of whatever team, Donovan Mitchell may be available. How interested are you?
Depends on the team, of course. I mean, he's an awfully good player, but
He's not here yet, right?
No,
He's
no.
here, but
I
he's not.
think to put him in. I don't think you can put him in the top 20 of actual players of impact. So maybe somewhere in the 20 to 30 range, and that's a maybe. Because you have to really need a primary scorer. You know, if that's what you
That's
need.
what he is, yeah.
He's a volume
Yeah.
scorer. You know, it's a Bradley Beal type. I mean, same thing with Bradley Beal. I mean, I think that Donovan Mitchell is just a younger version. I mean, I think they're both terrific, but I just think if they're your very best player, I think you're probably, you know, maybe looking at 45 wins at best. It depends, you know, obviously their surrounding cast, but I sure wouldn't be giving up the farm at all.
Utah had a really, really good team a couple years ago,
Yeah, they
best
had
record
that
in the
team.
league,
Yeah.
but they just came to realize we're not getting better, and we're never going to get where we want to get to. So time to break that thing up, right? I know your buddy Danny Ainge is recognizing
Yeah,
that.
well, Danny knows what to do. I mean, you know, and I mean he's brought in there, I think, to do that. And you know, it's when you tear up a team, it's easy to tear them up. It's a little harder to bring them back, as you know. I think we have on record knowing that. But you know, because everybody just said, "Well, just blow it up," and oh yeah, that's a good plan. Now, how about the other plan?
Yeah, put it together.
You know, because if you can get the picks and pick correctly and get the right coach. I mean, you look at Utah, it's like, okay, you're right. They had the best record in the league. They weren't the best team, but they had the best record. And I think credit a lot to Quinn Snyder, who's an excellent coach. Well, they don't have him anymore.
Nope.
And my guess is they don't have as good a coach. So they don't have, doesn't mean he won't be, but he's not. So they've lost there. Gobert, whether he's your best player, second best player, he's one of those. And you've given up a lot, so you've lost ground there. And then now, yeah, Donovan Mitchell is your best player, and he can go get you 23, 24, 25 points about every night on 20, 21 shots.
If that's your idea of efficiency, right?
And
yeah.
I mean, and how many games can you win like that? I don't know. I mean,
I don't see him as a really good fit with Sacramento. I know that's one of the teams.
Oh, I don't think it fit at all. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, I think most people say, well, he's probably better than De'Aaron right now. He's done more. He's proven more, and I agree with that. It's in the books.
Been on a better team,
He's
too.
been an all-star, and he's been a key guy on 50-plus win teams. So it's in the books. But I don't know just how much he moves the needle. You know, he might shimmer it a little bit,
Get it shaken.
get it shaking there a little bit.
How about you, big Donovan Mitchell guy?
Not really. What I was concerned about is like with Utah, they've gotten rid of Gobert. I say they've gotten rid of the coach, and so now Danny Ainge has to go out. Am I rebuilding with Donovan Mitchell, or am I blowing it all up and starting all over again? So, do you think he's in a situation where he's got to deal Donovan Mitchell? Is that his overall plan?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't sound like that any of us think that Donovan Mitchell is your linchpin. I mean, I guess Gobert would have been more of a linchpin. But so Danny Ainge is kind of painted himself into a corner. I know he's a really smart guy, but now he's got this one real big asset, and he's got to get what he can for him, right?
Yeah, I do think that he's going to make a deal. I think that he wants to make a deal, and I think it's just now I think it's a matter of negotiation where it's going to go and how much he's going to get. And I think the thing that hurts Danny a little bit is the amount they got for Gobert, which holy cow,
4 number ones, right? And a pick swap.
Yeah, I mean, did I miss something?
Did Gobert turn into Wilt Chamberlain overnight?
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't see Bill Russell there, but So anyway, and maybe it'll work. I mean, it may work for Utah or for Minnesota, but I thought it was a really good haul.
Nice haul, yeah.
Yeah, and so having said that, I mean, I think they're thinking, well, Donovan Mitchell may be a better player than Gobert, which I think he is. Different, of course, totally different. But that doesn't mean you can get the same, and I don't think they will. So I agree. I think Danny knows, hey, if you're going to blow it up,
You got to blow it up.
you got to blow it up.
Would Westbrook, pardon me, but would Westbrook maybe make sense for Utah if they can get some picks back just for taking him on? And I know he's not a good fit there, but if they're thinking we're going to retool. When I initially heard that, I read that somewhere and I thought, no, that doesn't make sense. But the more I think about it, if Danny Ainge could get some assets just for taking Westbrook on, keeps you somewhat relevant in the short term while you're really building for the future. Does that make sense?
Well, it depends on the picks, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
I mean, I would see that. I mean, I could, because when Westbrook, one thing about Westbrook, he's going to play hard,
yeah.
and he'd be better there than with the Lakers.
Right.
I
I mean,
mean,
he can run the show, right?
I like
so,
that idea.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I honestly, if I could, if it were me, the way I'd look at it, I wouldn't trade Donovan Mitchell that way. I'd trade Mike Conley that way because I think the ship is moving out towards sea. And,
Yeah.
and
Going under the bridge now. Yeah.
yeah, and so okay, so you're and if you, but the Lakers really don't have the picks that they need, and at least that I can see. But anyway, that I think that, of course, you could maybe get a third team involved somewhere or whatever. I don't know, but I think that's if I'm Danny Ainge, I'm looking to do all the above. I mean, certainly something with Conley, something with Bogdanovich, who certainly has some value in the league because
Who's better, Bogdanovich or Bogdanovich?
Oh
the
man.
one in Atlanta is better.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When he's healthy, right?
Yeah, when he's healthy.
When he's on the floor, yeah.
I always say, fans say, well, the Kings, got rid of him. I said, well, yeah, he missed. And people say, well, he's hurt all the time. I say, well, he looked pretty healthy in the playoffs the last 2 years. So
Yeah.
I think that's a kind of worth considering.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't have that problem with the Kings, so it wouldn't matter if it's healthy in the playoffs.
Hey.
I'm sorry. Hey, come on.
So Utah's a team that's bye-bye. They're on their way out. They recognize that clearly. So how about a team at the other end? I know we touched on this a little bit last week. Our buddy Nick Friedel wrote about this today at ESPN.com. Orlando. I know they got a long ways to go, and there's a lot of things that got to fall into place. They look like they know what they're doing, don't they? The Magic look like they're building things the right way. They have talent. They have a chance to be, not this year necessarily, but don't they have a chance to be on the right track to being relevant again?
They've got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of talent, and I think that credit to Jeff Weltman and John Hammond. I know good basketball people have been for years. And, I mean, trades. I mean, so having said that, I mean, they had a lot of talent last year, and they couldn't beat Molly Putz.
Yeah.
So,
No.
Molly Putz.
yeah.
Yeah.
Molly
Yeah.
could get it going to the hoop,
Molly, I thought Molly had a good 3-point shot back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
You didn't bomb from out there, Molly. Hey, Molly, what are you doing?
But I do. I mean, I think coaching we'll see there. I mean, Mosley. I mean, I think he's going to have to show more. I mean, but I mean, I think that young talent there. If they can get Jonathan Isaac back, who's a terrific talent.
Right.
I mean, I
And
don't.
Suggs didn't play much last year, right?
Pardon?
Jalen Suggs didn't play much last
Didn't
year,
play
did
much. He was hurt a lot. Didn't
Yeah.
play well either.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't play well. Of course,
Wagner's my guy. He was pretty good.
He looked good. Carter, Wendell Carter Jr. I mean, they picked up. I think is a very good player.
Greg Anthony's kid was pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Probably needs to be an off the bench scorer.
Yeah.
But
Not
he can play.
Not a great passer. Doesn't give the ball up a lot.
Yeah, he's a scorer. He's a scorer. Yeah, and he's a volume guy too. So you want to. And my mind is he really needs to be a 6-man,
Yeah.
go in and try to lesser version of a Bobby Jackson kind of guy. But Suggs, I think they're you just don't know yet. His shooting was just not NBA caliber last year. Period. And Markelle Fultz
Yeah.
shows. I mean, he shows. He shows some things.
Shows some flashes.
But you got to do it. Over a season. So a lot of questions. I mean, could they make a huge improvement? Yeah, I think they could. But boy.
And you're not totally sold, not to put words in your mouth, but on Banchero either, right? I mean,
No, I'm really not. I mean, I'm not really. It's hard to be sold on
Yeah,
any rookie
sure.
until they do something.
Sure.
I mean, I see how he could be really good, but he is kind of a ball dominant guy, and we just talked about why that might not fit as well. You got a whole bunch of lottery picks. I mean, you've got probably that team has got 10 guys who were drafted in the top 5, which ought to tell you something too.
Yeah.
But at some point, I mean, they're all, and I think that's where the coach comes in. At some point, it's gonna be tough to define kind of roles. And I mean, with Banchero, could he be the best player on that team? Yes, he could. Will some other guys? How will they be amenable to that too? There's that issue. So I don't know. I think they're, probably this year's a proving year. They're most likely. I'd be real surprised if they jump from 3 or 4 wins to 45. I could see them jumping up there 8 or 9 wins for sure.
Yeah, I think watching McGarrow in the Summer League, obviously he was a ball-dominant guy, and your hope is that he knows enough about the game to know that that's not going to be the way he runs it when he gets to the real games, and he'll have to integrate himself into the team. I thought it was interesting the way that everybody wanted to draft Jabari Smith first for the entire lead-up, and then a day before, all of a sudden it switches, and now everybody's talking about, well, of course it was Banchero. We all knew he was the best, and I thought that was a quick,
I still would have taken
that was a
Jabari
quick
Smith.
turnaround. Well, yeah, or Betty Chet, but I'm hoping that Banchero is good. And I'm hoping he's good because he can translate. He knows that in Summer League it was my ball, because we talked about this before. He definitely looked like whatever happens, it's going to be me. And maybe he can't do that on the regular team, but I'm hoping he can and can find his place because he is a talented player.
Well, and they need that. I mean, they need him to be the guy. I mean, that's what we just can't know right yet. I mean, I think every team you got to have a guy that, and it looks like, I mean, it's 6'10", 250. I mean, he's mobile, he's skilled. He probably tries to do too much with the ball,
right?
Make a lot of turnovers. But I mean, that's they've got a lot of guys who should be really good, but at some point doesn't feed the bulldog,
right? The need for that guy. Is that maybe part of Boston's thinking that they ask about Durant? I know they got, Tatum's a pretty good player, but is it maybe they should have won the finals, don't you think? I mean, they were up 2-1. They had a 5-point lead at home in the fourth quarter. They would have been up 3-1. And taken nothing away from the Warriors. But Steph Curry took over that series at that point. Maybe they look at it and say, we didn't have that guy. Tatum's a good player. He was worn down. Is that maybe part of the thinking why they go after a guy like, to the degree they did, after a guy like Durant?
Oh, sure. That's exactly it, I think. Because they don't have a guy as good as Durant. That's true. Yeah. They don't have as good a guy as Curry. That's why they lost.
Right.
So, that guy on the other team he's Steph Curry, and he changed the the deal, and who should be surprised by that? So often, it does come down to what team has the best player at the crucial times, and then I think with the last year it was the Warriors.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I think Steph Curry showed he could do that some of the naysayers had said he couldn't do. It's like he plays in the system, greatest shooter ever, but couldn't do what guys like Kobe and MJ could put the team on their back.
Right. Yeah.
And he did that in these finals, which is why Bobby Marks. This is another thing we haven't talked about.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, you guys probably heard Bobby Marks on ESPN saying, "I got Steph number 2 all time behind MJ." I don't know what you guys thought of that.
As what? As a player? Total overall player?
Yeah, he said, "I got MJ 1 right now. I got Steph number 2 ahead of everybody else."
Who's 3?
Except
Rasheed Wallace.
I don't know who's number 3. I think he's maybe LeBron, but
okay.
Yeah.
I don't even think
he was actually in the prison of the moment where you could see actually the bars.
Yes.
He's in the prison of the moment right
Yes.
now, and he says that. You see the warden in the back,
Yeah.
but that's what he said.
Yeah, well, the other thing is I would like to see Boston, like you talk about they improved. I would like to see them go, okay, we were really close, and now we're mature. We're maturing one more year, and we've gotten better. Let's just do that and try to throw that out there. But to the other point, I think that Bobby Marks, and I like Bobby Marks, but
Assistant
sometimes
GM for the Nets,
sometimes you just say stuff, because I want people.
You wouldn't
to talk,
do that, would
I want
you?
people to talk. No, I wouldn't even do that. And I love Steph Curry, but come on, I'm a Kareem guy, so I would never keep him out of the top 2. But I just think that prisoner of the moment, like you said, when you sit back after a week, you look at it and you go, I was silly. Why did I do that?
Well,
that was really silly what I said.
Ratings per se, it's just impossible. I mean, I've always kind of felt like if there's any player in the history of the game that's underrated, it's been Steph Curry that has never gotten enough credit. It's like, the rules are different and he's benefited. Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
Just like go back in the 50s, Oscar Robertson benefited by being the biggest, strongest guard in the league and the rules of the time, And so, just give the guy credit. I don't know
What his
what
number
spot
is.
I'd put him
Yeah,
in there.
yeah.
But I guarantee you, anytime you start talking about the greatest player to ever play, his name should be brought up.
He should
Yeah.
be in there
Should
somewhere.
be brought up.
Yeah, I think if there's any significance to any of that, it's the way Steph played in the finals this year. Really convinced. I think everybody's like, you have to have him in that conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe not number 2, maybe not Fano.
No, but
I think there was some that was like, yeah, but, and now I don't think you can do that anymore.
Well, that's just going to the but guys. I think we had Curry nudging the top 10 before the whole thing, and now I think he just solidified his position there and stepped up, which is what I mean. Ultimately, what you have to do, even though it's a team game, ultimately what you do is win championships and be the reason you won the championship. And I think that's what Durant's always had trouble with, is even when he was the reason they won the championship, he wasn't the guy. So, I mean, that's why he's had trouble. But, yeah, I think
he was the finals MVP, though, a couple
No, I know.
years.
He was twice. But
Yeah.
he was the reason. I mean, he was the best player in those two finals, but I don't think it was enough for him because whatever, it's still Steph City or whatever the reason is. I think that he ultimately went there to do something. He did it, and it still wasn't enough for him.
I think Durant felt, who knows, but I think Durant thought, okay, all the criticism of me for leaving Oklahoma City, when I go to Golden State and we win,
Right.
then I will be vindicated. And instead, of course, people looked at it and said, that ring doesn't count. Now, that's ridiculous.
No,
but I think
that
he
is
was I don't
ridiculous.
think he understood the way people were looking at it. And I know here we're getting into, dime store psychology, but I think I don't think he expected that. I think it really confused him. I think it hurt him. And he is a very sensitive guy, Jer.
Evidently.
It seems such.
Evidently,
Yes, it does
very,
seem
very,
such.
very sensitive. In a field that probably doesn't.
Right.
You probably need a little less sensitivity. Fake accounts and all that.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
burner
But,
accounts, sure.
Obviously he's one of the elites. But like I say, it's so hard to rate guys. All I know is that for me, number one is always going to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because he, as a number one basketball player to ever play, because he played on 3 college championships, 6 championships in the NBA, and one of which was he played on 2 different teams.
Yep.
So Russell can't say that.
Wasn't he a 6-time MVP as well?
Six-time MVP.
And 6 titles, yeah.
And
leads-
deserved every one. And
and
there was
deserved-
no, they should have given it to somebody else.
Yeah, and
He should
so
have had it, yeah.
and if they didn't have the freshman couldn't play rule, he'd have had 4 college. Texas Western wouldn't have been a historic
changed
an
history.
historic championship
Yeah.
team, because UCLA would have won Lou Alcindor's rookie year,
Yeah.
because they were probably their freshman team was better than any team in the country then.
Yeah. He definitely could carry a team on his back
Yeah.
when he needed to. Although
Yes,
later on,
he
even
could.
later on at the end
Yeah.
of his career, correct me if I'm wrong, Jerry, but with those Laker teams, towards the late '80s, he wasn't what he used to be, but he was still one of the better centers in the league.
He was still the guy. I'm always say, that people, kind of rationalize a little bit, but I know just from playing against him, and he wasn't the same. But in a time of need, what happens? They hold up 5,
Yeah.
and go to the cap. Thank you.
Look out!
And
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
MVP in the finals at 38.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's
Well, he had the unstoppable shot. I mean, and that's all there was to it. Yeah, he couldn't rebound as well. He couldn't defend quite as well at the end of his career. But you still couldn't guard him. I mean, he was still unguardable in certain situations. And I always said that as great as Magic was or Worthy was, 6 or 7 seconds on the clock, and you got nothing going, they ain't going to help you. The captain did.
Well, when you talk about the greatest players of all time, you always, at least with me, I always put the 3 centers up there first, with Wilt and Russell and Kareem. Who do you think's next in that group as far as centers is concerned? Yeah. There's I think 3 or 4 different guys, Moses Malone.
Didn't you go to high school with George Mikan?
George was a senior when I was a freshman, yeah. I didn't play on the same team with him. I was on the JVs, but you got Moses, you got Akeem, you got Shaq, obviously.
Shaq,
So that, to me, there's a definite tier system, the 3, and then everybody else.
And David Robinson, would have to put him.
And Ewing in there somewhere.
Mr.
probably.
Elijah one on the phone.
Yeah, I said. Hakeem's my guy.
So I wasn't listening.
Yeah, of course you weren't. Yeah, nor was anybody else.
I actually would. I think I'd almost have to say Shaq.
Yeah.
Elijah one, I like watching play a lot more, and he was much smaller and more gifted in a lot of ways. But Shaq was just such a dominant.
Shorter time though. Like Kareem was like great this long. Shaq was really great, but just for this brief a period, right?
Yeah. So just
Yeah.
on that basis.
But he was truly dominant.
Well, and the thing about Shaq as a young player, and I always think people forget. I mean, he might have been the fastest player in the league.
Oh, at Orlando, yeah.
Oh, just run like the wind. I mean, just like create a vacuum out there.
You can't
you
tell
know,
the kids that
but
now.
we tend to remember him at the end. Where where he just went down there and I always say the so-called dislodging rule. You can't dislodge a defender, and that's all he did was dislodge him. Boom, boom. I'll take this spot. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But those other guys, I mean, to talk about Wilt and Russell, they were both college track stars too.
Yeah.
So I guess the fast center, especially young, that used to be the
Yeah.
way. I mean, those guys. I mean, Lou Alcindor led the break. I mean, these
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
These guys.
Yeah, and they were real athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's point I think sometimes in just because they're really tall, but they were really athletic and would have been had they been 5 or 6 inches shorter, they still would have probably played in the league.
Yeah.
I always say that was kind of the way of looking at some of the King centers. I mean, over the years, I mean, like Joe Klein, if he were 6, 7 inches shorter, he wouldn't have been able to play basketball at all.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
but I mean, and he's not unusual. I mean, there were a lot of guys in the league that, they weren't really athletic guys, but they were real big at a time when big people had an advantage, a true advantage, which they don't necessarily now.
Are you talking about Juwan Oldham?
Oldham wouldn't qualify in there.
Ben Guillory.
Actually, Oldham was a really good athlete.
Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah, very athletic. He just chose not to use it on a regular basis.
I see.
On the basketball floor. Yeah. Okay. Well.
But yeah, really, just a little unique. Unique
Yeah.
would be the word.
I remember there was a question once about which center is the only one born in the United States, and they asked him, and it was like Oldham, Tim Duncan, and David Robinson or something. And he was like, I don't know. And it's like, no, it's you. You're the and he didn't. He's like, who is it? I don't know. No, you. You're the answer.
You're the guy.
Yeah. Phantom, I know you've brought some of your goodies
Yes.
with us today. Can you explain the significance of the 42?
That's-
Because this is like your favorite guy, right? Is
That's
this the
my
first
favorite player.
inductee in the
Yes.
old-fashioned 3
Yes.
Hall of Fame?
I had another candidate in mind who I'll put in later on, but I had to go with my guy Connie Hawkins. I have to put him in as the first inductee in the old-fashioned 3 Hall
Well,
of Fame.
nominee is does he get enough votes? You vote for him? Connie
Yeah.
Hawkins? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
He's in. Congratulations.
Wow, thanks, Jerry. I appreciate
Yeah,
that. Yeah, I picked up his biography, I think back in 1972 or something, and read about him because he was famous. His best days were before 1972, really, but he has a long history of a playground player and went to college and got involved in a betting scandal. Went to college with Don Nelson, as a matter of fact, for a little while. Got involved in a betting scandal, which he was innocent of, and then got
But he was
blackballed.
banned, yeah.
He got banned, blackballed from the league, went to the ABL, the American Basketball League, the ABA, and then finally sued the league and got back in the NBA in 1969-70 season with the Phoenix Suns. Had a couple of one great season, a couple of really good seasons, and then played with the Hawks and played with the Lakers. But I mean, just a great story and a great player, and he became my favorite player. And so I brought in my Connie Hawkins 42 jersey, Pittsburgh Pipers from the ABA, and he is my nominee, now my inductee into the old-fashioned 3 Hall of
Another
Fame.
guy ahead of his time, right, Jared, with the showmanship.
He really was. I mean, he was almost Dr. J before Dr. J. Mm-hmm. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, he just the huge hands, the able to dunk, and it was like Phantom said, it was a shame because time he got in the league, he probably was past his prime. I mean, and
Yeah, he was 27 when he got into the
yeah,
NBA.
I mean,
he just
he
had a knee injury.
he was. I mean, still was one of the elite players for several years, but no question would have been, many time more all-star had he gotten the league and not been treated unfairly, which he was.
Yeah, the thing that I always thought of is if he would have been allowed to play when he would have been eligible, like about 1965 or so, he would have changed the look of the league the way he plays. And I know Elgin Baylor was in his prime then, and Elgin Baylor was a great player, but Connie Hawkins had a little bit different, a showmanship, a flair from the playgrounds and stuff. If he would have shown that in the league, I think that we didn't see that stuff until Doc came in. Or maybe a David Thompson came in a decade later, and I think the look of the NBA would have been different had he been allowed to play at his time. So he is our inductee.
Yeah, he and Maravich played same time. They were contemporaries, right? Those
Yeah,
were some,
yeah.
yeah. When they played, there was some fancy ball
A
handling
little
going
fancy
on.
ball handling
Yeah,
going on.
yeah.
Lou Hudson was on the Pete
Sweet
Maravich.
Lou Hudson,
Sweet
yeah.
Sweet Lou, yeah.
And
Yeah.
Connie played with Paul Silas, who we talked about before.
Paul Silas, yeah.
Yeah.
Great career, just some of those guys. But Hawkins, I mean, really, you're right. I think would be viewed significantly different had he been treated fairly. That's all.
It's a fascinating story if you haven't ever, investigated it. It's called Foul is the name of the book, the biography of Connie Hawkins. It's really good.
Nobody
really,
reads
really
books
good.
anymore. You're right. Of course, it's a great book, but nobody.
You go online.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
So that's basically your
that's
favorite
my
player.
That's
yeah.
my favorite basketball player. Yeah.
Do you have, as a fan, do you have a favorite player? I think I know it's one of two guys, I think. But do you have, and maybe being so close to it, it's hard to look at it that way like a fan. But
Well, I
have
mean,
two guys too,
I mean, I always had heroes growing up, and my heroes were Jerry West and Oscar Robertson, and then probably just being associated with Bird and McAdoo. Over the years, they would come in there, but so on that basis, I was just thinking a little bit of what Phantom was talking about was guys that were really terrific that didn't really get their due.
Yeah.
And I think of a guy like Roger Brown that played for the
okay.
Indiana
Uh-huh.
Pacers.
Yeah.
And really he was kind of ahead of his time. I watched the ABA a lot in those days because he was a 6'5" small forward, which is small even then. I mean, but that would have worked, and he was terrific off the bounce.
Fantastic.
I mean, you couldn't stay in front of him. I mean, he was a perfect kind of small forward into a wing in today's game, and of course he was an all-star.
Kind of
even
like
then.
a Havlicek.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, just not quite as good, probably, or no, almost for sure.
Well, you probably saw him a lot in the ABA, right?
I did. Yeah, he was
Freddie Lewis and those guys.
Freddie
team,
Lewis,
that
those guys,
Pacers
but
team.
he was terrific. I mean, he was really not like say one of those guys that could go get 25 every night and you couldn't do much about it. He wasn't quite a Bernard King type, but he's one of those guys that really basketball fans don't know anything about.
Yeah, he was in the same.
And I mean, and he's way better than some guys that probably most fans. Oh yeah, that guy's great. Well, no, Roger is better than him.
Yeah, Roger Brown. I'll give you my favorite. I think one of my favorites of all time. I just loved Magic when they were playing the Celtics and just the passes he was able to make at 6'9" as as a rookie. That game he had in the finals, 1980 Game 6. I don't know if anyone's ever had a better game. And you can make the case, but it's right up there.
It's right there.
Kareem's not there. All right, I'll play center and score whatever, score 40, whatever.
42, I
They
think.
won the championship.
When you consider his being a rookie,
Yeah.
and then Kareem being out, I think it has to be the greatest individual game in history. I really do. I think that the only one I'd even compare it to would be Adetokounmpo's 51. I mean, but that would be secondary to Magic because he's an accomplished player, an MVP, and and all that. But Magic, obviously you can't, you just can't say enough good things about Magic. I mean, his place in history is deserved.
One of the guys like Bird and LeBron that actually exceeded the hype.
Yeah.
Which is, when they came out, so much hype, and they actually exceeded it. And then a guy that I think doesn't get the credit he deserves, and he gets more credit than the guys you mentioned. You guys are a little more obscure, though they shouldn't be. But the guy that caught a lot of Magic's passes, I think Jamal Wilkes was a lot better player than he gets credit for. I think he was a really good
He is a
player.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, but like you say, you talk about a guy winning.
Yeah.
A couple national championships in college, played with the Warriors,
Yeah.
75 championship, then of course the Lakers. I mean, the epitome of being a winner. I don't want to compare him to Big Shot Bob because of many reasons.
Many
Yeah,
reasons,
yeah.
sure.
As-
We don't need to go there.
yeah, I'm starting to spit up a little bit. I don't want to.
Big Shot Bob cost you a new roof, right?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And I confronted him about it, and he said, good.
He didn't offer to cover the cost or anything?
No.
Oh, come on, Bob.
No.
You got
No.
7 rings. You can cover the cost.
So Big Shot Bob, maybe Big Shot Bob, but all I know is you should have had your ass on the board. You're a power forward.
Yeah, why aren't you going to the board? You're trying to
Your
get the
team is
rebound.
two down with several seconds to go and you're guarding the backcourt.
Yeah. Hey, look what I found.
Hey, okay, I think I'll hit this and cost Jerry a roof.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that little
He said
gray-haired,
roof and hit it. Yeah.
gray-haired fart. You don't need it.
I feel badly. We started off talking about, the Rashid
Yeah, you got
Giannis thing, and just got Jerry off to a bad start. And here we are wrapping it up, and I've sent you down the tunnel of despair again with Robert Ory. I feel bad.
Oh
man.
well, you know, live in infamy, as it were. But of course, there's a lot. That's maybe the least of bad things that happened in that series. But we'll save that for other days.
Robert Ory, a Hall of Famer, he's not, is he?
No.
I mean, really good player on some good teams.
Yeah, he really isn't. But damn, he was good. But there's guys in the Hall of Fame not as good as he is. And I think sometimes he probably gets painted, rightly so, as not being good enough because he was a valuable role player
he
on
wasn't a
great
main
teams.
guy. Yeah.
But there's several Celtics in there on those early Celtic teams that's what they were. Mm-hmm. Frank Ramsey and Satch Sanders. I mean, those guys.
Satch Sanders.
I know we're old school, but those guys were limited role players on great teams.
Yeah, and you look at their
And
stats.
what would they have been on another
titles,
team?
Yeah, 11 titles, right.
Yeah, you put them both on the Syracuse Nationals and they wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. That's all.
Syracuse National talk today.
So next time you'll give us a list of guys playing now, Hall of Famers. Sure Hall of Famers, maybe Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Surprise Hall of
Yeah.
Famers?
Well, I don't know about surprise. I'm like Jerry. I don't want to let the standards, the requirements get too
You're
low.
a small Hall of Fame guy. Some people are big Hall of Fame guys. You're a small one.
The worst is football because if you follow football, a guy throws 3 touchdowns, he's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's what they do with quarterback. Derek Carr's in the Hall of Fame now. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, I will. I
don't believe he is, but I understand your point.
Well, that's what I was told yesterday. He's a sure Hall of Famer, Derek Carr. He's in 3
Well,
Pro
I think
Bowls.
that's the thing with any of those halls. I mean, it went from Hall of Great to Hall of Good, very good.
Yeah.
And of course I can't bitch much because I got in one of them that pretty.
I
much
thought you
on
were in
that-
2. You're in 1? I thought you were in a couple Halls
Well,
of
I'm in
Fame.
several, but
the
one in particular, the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame.
So
I was going to say, I think that they, quite honestly, that they had to lower the
They
standard.
had Bobby Knight and Isaiah Thomas and Jerry
there's-
Reynolds. Yeah.
Larry Bird, Oscar Robertson, Jerry Reynolds.
Hey, you're still on the list, man. You're still.
I'm
certainly
I'm
worthy.
thrilled, but
the building.
I honestly feel like, really. But then again, then I look around some other guys and well, crap, I did better than him.
So on your plaque, does it say Caucasian comment?
It doesn't. No, it left out some of the highlights.
Some of the highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim Bob Bowley's not in the Hall of Fame.
No,
is he?
he's not.
Oh, no.
You kept him out.
I think he's probably, it's probably just traumatic for him. I don't think he ever was the same after the.
So he's like your Bob Ory.
He got comatized,
he
right?
He got comatized.
Yeah.
Of course, I got comatized a few times too.
We all do, though. It's like getting dunked on. Everybody gets dunked on.
Everybody gets dunked on. Everybody
it's all right.
There's always somebody better. You
Yeah.
know? I mean, I don't care if you're who
Yeah.
you are. I mean, there's times, ask LeBron. He didn't make the playoffs. So
That's right.
Yeah, not a Hall of Famer.
All right. We'll see you next time. Old Fashioned 3.
Old Fashioned 3. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining the Old Fashioned 3 on Stones Radio Networks. To stay updated on the show, like and subscribe on YouTube, and all shows are available for download on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and of course at stonesradionetworks.com. Follow the show and the gents on Twitter at OL, Fashioned, and the number 3, at Phantom Radio 60, and at Whitey Gleason. This has been a production of Stones Radio Networks.